Welcome to Fear Less, Do More, the podcast where we dive into the minds of some extraordinary and fearless businesses and people who are challenging the status quo and who are helping to change the world of business around us. I'm your host, Gill Hunter. I'm the managing partner at Square One Law. On each episode, I'll be chatting to innovators, change makers and trailblazers, where we explore the unique journeys of our guests. We'll delve into the fears they've faced, the setbacks they've overcome, the lessons they've learned along the way. We'll uncover the secrets behind their resilience, and we'll find out what motivates them to keep going, even in the face of adversity. We'll also have a few laughs along the way too. My guests are all leaders who relentlessly pursue their passions, not only to create a better tomorrow, but who inspire us to push our own boundaries, those who fear less and do more. Hi and welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today I have an extremely impressive woman with me, Isabella West. Her business is called Hirestreet, and she is one of Forbes 30 under 30, Drapers 30 under 30, Business Disruptor of the Year and Young Businesswoman of the Year. So I'm really delighted that she's taken time out of her busy schedule today to come and have a chat. Hi, Isabella, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I mean, that's quite a list of achievements.
Honestly, it sounds better than it is. And yeah, I'm turning 30 in 2 months' time. And it was always a funny one because the Forbes one was like an actual goal from a young age. And that actually happened quite a few years ago. So I'm like, no, I need to step things up again. Like, what's next after those 30 milestones?
Yeah, there does seem to be quite a lot of sort of like under 30s. And so you're sort of into, you'll be hitting the mid-years.
What happens in that? What happens there? what do we go after?
Well, hopefully the only way is up.
Hopefully.
So Hirestreet, for people who don't know what Hirestreet is or does, can you just sort of give us a quick resume?
Absolutely. So started Hirestreet 5 years ago now, crazily. And fundamentally, the point of it is to provide a sustainable, affordable alternative to people who buy outfits and wear them once. And prior to 5 years ago, that really was me. And it was actually kind of my whole generation. So when I was at uni, we kind of grew up in that world of, the rise of misguided and fast fashion, like post-global financial crash and the huge kind of move towards affordability in the fashion space. And then at the same time, there was the rise of Instagram. So you had kind of two things going on. One was like, Facebook as well. One was like every night out had its own Facebook album, which is not good now to look back at. And also like that kind of ability to kind of buy a dress for £20 or so, which just previously hadn't really existed. So what happened when we all kind of left university and started earning, everyone got into this mindset of buy fashion, wear it once. And fundamentally, speaking for myself and speaking for other people who were or colleagues or friends, my sisters, we all ended up with so much stuff. We had so many clothes, so many dresses that we had literally worn once, twice at best. And the whole nature of like, our relationship with fashion totally changed. It wasn't an investment piece. It was literally an outfit for an occasion, and then it was no longer had a purpose. So that was kind of like what I was seeing at the time amongst like, I guess, a shift in consumption amongst my peer group. And then really, I actually came to be moving house, and I lived in a flat share with two other girls at the time, and we had, it's terrible, but like suitcases and suitcases full of worn once clothing. And at that point, I had this moment where I was like, this just makes no sense. So started Hirestreet, and basically what you do is instead of buying that outfit to wear it once, you pay a fraction of the price, you wear it for a weekend, you send it back, and then the next weekend someone else wears it. So it's fashion rental, but it's also kind of not focused on the traditional area which fashion rental is most commonly associated with, which is the luxury side of the market. We didn't want to build something which basically gave access to the top percentage of earners that basically enabled them to access more designer items whenever they wanted. This was to actually fundamentally shift how the mass population was able to consume and to provide an alternative to fast fashion based on the world that we'd all just had for the last 5 years. So that was really kind of the crux of where we started. And in the 5 years since, we've done all sorts of things, really. The biggest pivot, I would say, is we still obviously have Hirestreet, it's a massive part of the business, but the biggest kind of extension to the product we've done since is add a software arm. So we also power retailers to go into rental directly to customers themselves, which is just a shift we saw coming in the market. There's only so many headlines they can read about the rise of rental marketplaces without wanting a piece of the action themselves. And we kind of heard that early on and decided to basically cannibalize our business before someone else did and build the next step, which is actually the highest growth area at the moment, which is great.
And obviously, in the middle of all of this, we had COVID,
Oh, yeah.
when you've just launched a business and then everybody has to stay in and doesn't go to events, must have had quite an impact at that time.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I don't know. The last 5 years certainly has not been a standard kind of good cycle for the economy, shall we say. So yeah, COVID, firstly, high inflation, cost of living now. Even just like the funding situation that is happening more broadly, like it's not been smooth sailing. It has meant that we've kind of never had that ability to rest. I don't know, that doesn't sound like a good thing. There's definitely pros and cons, but we've never had the ability to be like, oh, this is just working and this is easy, let's do more of the same. We've always had to be like, what next? It would be nice if that could dial down a bit, a little bit. But yeah, it's kept us on our toes. So
would you call yourselves a technology company or a fashion company? How would you define Hirestreet?
Technology now. Obviously, we're purely online, so there's always been a heavy tech element to the business. But fundamentally, the way we want to position ourselves in the market going forward is basically a tool to help the world consume better. We do that through our own marketplace, Hirestreet, and also by giving retailers the access to our technology via Zoa.
And the retailers you're talking about, well, we're not talking about sort of little shops on a high street. We're talking about big retailers here.
Yes.
How have you found moving and shaking in that world?
It's interesting, actually. I was there's certain moments in life where you like have a bit of a realization, and they're few and far between, which is good. But I got invited to something called the 20 Club, which is a historic group of retailers, and it was historically like the 20 top retailers in the UK. And I was obviously very flattered to be asked to join, and I joined, and I went to this first dinner, and on the table was the most incredible people, people from the biggest retailers basically in the UK. I was sat beside the president, and when I was there, he made this lovely speech saying, our first member under 30, our first ever rental member, and I just thought, I still have huge imposter syndrome in that situation, but yeah, that was a very big moment of wow, this is actually, retail is a bit of a club. And actually it was this year, it felt like they kind of let me in a bit, which has been great. But our partners, they range from M&S to the Boohoo Group, River Island Decathlon. We've got incredible partners. And I think what's important about kind of what we do is we would describe ourselves as an R&D arm to those businesses. So a lot of them are thinking about how they can improve in this world, the area of sustainability. And it's never black and white. They all have kind of their own spin on it. And so for us, it's really about relationship building. It's really collaborative. So what M&S want to learn from rental is not the same as, what the Boohoo Group want to learn. They all kind of have different things that they want to test. So for us, we take their stock. We, support them to basically get it worn by as many people as possible. We feed that data back, and we're always helping them learn. But we really are kind of doing research for them to then shape what they want to go and do next. And that's really kind of, I think, being the key to working with bigger retailers. Obviously, we're tiny in comparison. You know, it's 25 people in the team, as we were mentioning. It like, but as long as you know what you don't know, and you're just giving them what you do know, I think that's kind of been our key to not kind of sinking in that world, and just being very transparent, very vulnerable, and like, we want to do this for you. Here's our data. Here's what we've managed to do for yours. Where do you want to go next? And so far, it's worked okay.
Well, it's interesting because you talk about you're talking about the retailers who are your customers essentially, but you don't talk about them as your customers. You talk about them as their partners. Yeah. So that sort of, how collaborative have you found them to be working with you?
Really, really mixed. And it also depends on the team at the time. So obviously we've been through a world of COVID, that there is natural turnover in any of those retailers. So it can really depend. But I mean, our amazing team at M&S, after we launched, we kind of made national news when we launched their initial rental collection. And I'll always remember this. Their team said to us, "Thank you so much, you've made our careers here. You've like made our names at M&S," the team that got it launched. And so we'd worked super closely with them, like really intensely. Because changing a behavior of a consumer is one thing, but kind of convincing an incredibly established retailer with 30 million customers that that's the right thing for them to do is actually the incredibly hard part. So you might kind of make loads of progress with one team, and then you go and have the same conversation with, you know, the innovation team, the sustainability team, you know, the women's wear team, and they all have slightly different, you know, they're all slightly different stakeholders to manage. So yeah, it's been a big learning, I would say, to kind of navigate, like, you know, what the key messages are for each of the different teams, and also how to come across as credible, but also open to learning as well. Like, that's a balance that we haven't always got right. But no, they are partners at the end of the day, because like, we are literally 5 years into the world of rental. If you imagine how long people have been consuming for, like 800 BC or something, they had the first shops. So we've got a lot of behavior to disrupt. So when you go in, you think like, oh, 5 years, like I'm either, you know, obviously rental's grown amazingly in that time, but you know, it's still tiny in comparison to retail. And there's a reason for that, right? Like, it's a very age-old method of consuming. And it is no small kind of challenge to overcome, like basically getting everyone to believe as you believe, and actually telling them like, okay, well, maybe everyone doesn't feel the same, but what's the harm of trying has kind of shifted to be our key message, which is like, as long as there's no risk to trying, like give it a go. And then when they give it a go, they like it. And that's kind of the foot in the door route.
And obviously, you know, you started the company on your own, and you have been the figurehead for the company, hence you know, the awards and all of those sorts of things. How do you manage to manage your time? Because do customers expect always to deal with you because you are the company, as well as you having to run the company itself?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's definitely something I'm getting way better at. I think that there's still loads to learn. So like, delegation has been really key, and like just almost like training the people around you up to the level that you need, and being patient with that process. Because I used to have this thing where I was like, if I want something done, I'll just do it myself. It's quicker. And actually, like, that was such a destructive mindset, because it just meant that I was so burnt out and I couldn't do it all. So now actually the running of the business is hardly me. There is brilliant leads in each department, and I have, you know, meetings with them all the time, but they're feeding into me, and I'm very much a point of sign off and a point of discussion, or a point of like sounding board or challenge. But the day to day, I hardly do, which is great. That's kind of shifted in the last year.
So what are you spending most of your time doing then?
Future stuff.
Right.
So at the moment, it will be everything from like partners and their development plans, kind of mapping out next steps in the rental market. We're always looking at like our technology. My focus has always been like on consumer behavior. I love thinking about like what's coming next. I love looking at the data. So I do a lot of that, mostly because that's a bit I enjoy. And then obviously I have like investor kind of stakeholder management, just general kind of, I would say it's almost quite a good split. Like, looking after kind of investors and the fundraising side is variable at times, but can be a big share of the work. Maybe 25% of the time, 30% of the time, it's like being that sounding board for your leads. And then the rest of the time, it's kind of like, well, in a dream world, the rest of the time is looking at like the product and the future roadmap.
So you mentioned there investors, and you've had a couple of rounds of investment. What advice would you give somebody who was starting on thinking about whether or not they should take investment into their business?
That is a big question. Be really careful who you choose to get investment from, because taking money from the wrong people can really hurt you. I would say always have more than one offer on the table. Do not get into a situation where you either like need the capital and you only have one conversation ongoing about raising that capital, because the other person will be very aware of that situation and you have literally no bargaining power. And I think in the world of investment, you know, it is a not self-interest word, I don't know how the world, but you know, of course, like that's someone's hard-earned money, and you know, it's incredibly challenging to align everyone's incentives in those conversations. I don't think it's ever properly happened. So just giving yourself plenty of time, you know, really kind of checking the incentives and the terms of the other party and having options on the table would be 3 kind of places I would start. I'm pleased I raised capital at the points I did. But I think we're shifting at the moment in the world in general to this period where, you know, startups used to raise 50 million with very little traction, and they'd burn through it rapidly, and they'd employ loads of people, and you know, they'd expect the traction to come, but actually we're really in kind of a bit of a, people aren't calling it a burst bubble yet, but it really is happening. You're seeing huge tech layoffs. You're really seeing that kind of fluidity of capital tightening up. And as a result, a lot of startups are having to focus on profitability. Now, if you can do that from the outset, and I didn't always get this right, if you can do that from the outset and not kind of treat fundraising as something that will always be there, you will retain, you know, more of the business. Of course you will. And yeah, I mean, there are definitely lessons. I wouldn't necessarily rush to raise as I once did, knowing what I do know now. But at the same time, you know, if you can clearly say, I've got this formula, I know that if I raise this capital, I'm going to be able to dial up that formula, and this is the return's going to be. If you can clearly show that business case, and you know that like you believe that growth is possible, then go and raise, for sure. But do it with caution and try to avoid being a sole founding female, because the statistics are terrible in terms of, I think it's 0.79% of VC funding in Europe went to sole founding females in the last year. So if fundraising is always hard, but if you are in my position, it can be horrifically hard. And it's hard not to feel like, what do you do about that? I mean, I can't really change that. Yeah.
Well, you can, I think, you know, you're a brilliant role model for other young women who are starting up businesses, and I think that's really, really important, because you need to be able to see what you can be.
Thank you.
So I think, you know, being a role model is what you can do, and that's what you are. Changing the whole system, we could talk about that for a long time about how you do that. But we need things to fundamentally change at a different level. But I think things are slowly moving in the right direction, and it's great that people like you haven't been deterred by that and haven't been put off. Yeah. But it's such a shame that it's been, you know, that your gender should be a barrier to you having a successful business is really disappointing. And in terms of, you know, as I say, you are a really good role model for other women in business. Who have been your role models and inspiration?
Oh, I like that as a question. I mean, this is so cheesy, but my parents worked really hard. Like they literally, I'm one of four, they both work full time. They both have their own business. So like in terms of like some of the core values in me, like that hard work ethic and that like want to succeed, I think both of those come from seeing how hard my parents worked and like wanting to be able to like pay them back for that one day. And they obviously didn't do like that wasn't in their head when they were doing that. They just wanted to look after us. But to me, like that means a lot to think that one day that would be a possibility. So that was a huge motivator. I think being one of four, you're always naturally really competitive. So like there's a lot of like family dynamic of in there as well. So I think like I definitely wouldn't underestimate like that side of my life almost. And then I think, I mean, in terms of the kind of more work sense, there's obviously kind of, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I'm like an absolute kind of podcast, and I guess it's really boring, but like I do like reading management books and all of that side of like stories. And there's always elements that I would like choose to respect from like other people's stories. So like Marcia Kilgore with Beauty Pie and kind of Soap and Glory and everything that she did, like there's elements there where it's like kind of having a bit of a relentless focus on the customer. You know, there's all sorts, like whether it's Sheryl Sandberg, which, you know, I know that's an obvious one, but like just in terms of like her kind of narrative on stepping forward, particularly in that world which we've just been discussing. So I would say there's been like, there's elements that come from, so my family is definitely the drive, but then there's elements that I kind of hear that come from everything else. But I am an absolute kind of like inspiration fiend. I find it very easy to be inspired. Like, is that ridiculous? Like I literally love hearing other people's stories. And so there's so many. You could ask me each different day and I would have a different answer.
What's your top podcast recommendation then?
Oh, I'm a bit obsessed with the Drapers CEO at the moment.
Oh,
obviously,
right.
Other than this podcast. But Stephen Bartlett, I listen to that a lot at the minute. I used to do a lot of like How I Built This before that, but that's definitely my favourite at the moment.
I think it's great though, you know, there is so much information out there. You know, you don't have to go and buy a book and read the whole thing. No. You can have access to some of the most brilliant minds direct to them.
Literally. And they do shorts, right? Like they do like an 8-minute clip of the most important thing that was said. So if you have time, like I chose to walk here today, so mostly because I probably won't leave my desk if I don't. And then I just put like 3 different shorts on. Yeah. And just like 3 different ideas, like one was like Simon Sinek on the power of why. One was like totally different about motivation. And, you know, it's just like, well, that's a good 30 minutes of my time.
Yeah, there's things like Blinkist as well,
yeah,
which
I love
found,
that.
Yeah, which is great. You know, you find it. There's loads of management books that you think I'd like to get round and read that, but you don't have the time to physically consume the whole thing. Yeah. It breaks it down into little chunks for you, and you can listen to it, and that's it.
I think I literally totally agree, and I think I was going to get that from my managers or my leads at work. And just subscribe them to it and send them the books, because they must be so frustrated with me all the time being like, oh, I read about this, and you know, black box thinking, the youngest person is now going to start leading the meeting this week, and they're like, she's read something else and this is what's happening now. So yeah, we try a lot of things culturally because I love hearing about that stuff. But yeah, no, Blinkist is brilliant.
What you talked there a bit about the sort of the team and the culture. How would you describe your culture?
Ooh, I would say that we're very passionate. So I think the lovely thing about what we do is it's an easy topic to be passionate about. You know, we are literally, not only is it challenging, which I think tends to like bind people together, but it's incredibly important. You know, we're keeping clothes out of landfill. It's obviously far more sustainable if you, instead of buying something and wearing it once and then its ultimate life being in landfill, you know, we've got dresses that have rented 90 times. So, you know, it's an easy, I guess, subject matter to feel passionate about. So I think that was probably one that if you did an Ask the Team, they would probably all say. And then really what we're the big kind of cultural value we're trying to build up is this sense of ownership. So everyone kind of feeling like the founder of their own department. And we mentioned it slightly before, but when we were just chatting, but like moving towards a 4-day week and this type of thing, the whole concept that we're trying to do is, I don't believe in FaceTime at all. I totally believe that you will do your best work if you know what you need to do, you know how to do it, and that you feel like it's like that, delivering that can be done on your terms. And I think COVID, there was a lot of, not FaceTime, but I think it created a bit of like, are people on Slack or off Slack? The whole kind of start of working from home and trust. I think there was a lot for managers and leads to go through to kind of develop that, to not be seeing your junior team sat next to you almost. But coming out the other side of that, we've been working from home for 3 years now, or somewhat more flexibly recently. But what I really want to avoid is kind of burnout, FaceTime, any of those things. And so how we do that is basically trying to get people to have ownership of, from juniors all the way to the top, trying to get them to have ownership of their role, what they need to achieve that week, their diaries, so they can work flexibly already in their hours, their diaries, and therefore when they are done for the week, they can be done for the week, and actually hopefully also get more out of their social time too. So that's kind of the big one, I think, passion and ownership, and I'd add in learning as well, because I think everyone kind of has this whole concept where we like to learn, and we're very open with our brand partners and with our customers that we're like always wanting to be better. So that's probably the 3. I do have a head of people who will kill me because we do have a set of official cultural values, but that would be the 3 that I would say like resonate on the day-to-day.
And you mentioned 4-day working week there, which intrigues me. I mean, I'm fascinated by some of the trials that have gone on and the different feedback from people.
Yeah.
How is all of your team working 4 days a week, or? So
how, it's such a difficult thing to implement. That's one thing I will say to anyone considering doing it. So we're kind of testing it in stages. So we tested first half-day Fridays. Now, I don't know, I'm sure it's slightly different at Square One, but in some creative industries and obviously in tech and in other spaces as well, Friday afternoons are not always the most productive time, should we say. There is plenty, and it should be like that, right? Like everyone's excited for the weekend, and what we basically found is that we lost no productivity by letting people end at a half day on a Friday. Now, what that then leads you to is, okay, they've got 4 hours in on the Friday morning, which is obviously that's 4 hours of time that they theoretically need to work, but it's stopping them actually having that whole additional day, that whole additional Thursday night as well, almost, if that makes any sense. So the initial trial was that 4.5 day week, saw absolutely no loss in productivity at all from taking out the Friday afternoon. What we then are looking at doing, and there's only some of the team trialing it now, is actually taking out the Friday morning as well. Now, there's obviously things to test, which is like, we don't want to see burnout amongst people who are then going to add an hour each day to the prior days. We haven't at all, actually. So far, so good. We've actually found that people are not just getting their current week's work done in 4 days, they're getting more than what they used to get done, which is amazing. And so it's very much early stages. It's very much done in let's get comfortable with it before we kind of roll it out. We don't want to roll it out and then have to undo it. That wouldn't be great. But the team are all aware it's on the cards. And I think they're all incredibly excited by that. So so far it's looking good. But I will report back once we roll it out more widely.
And how supportive are your customers?
So it's worth noting that there are, of course, other roles that, like certain roles that we will have to swap the day. So we can't have all the customer service team off on a Friday, for instance. But in terms of like the kind of How supportive are they in terms of the 4-day working week, or like in terms of like us as a business?
In terms of the 4-day working week, but I suppose more generally as well.
To be honest, I think probably the best sign so far is that they haven't even realised it's happening.
Yeah.
And that's gives you a lot of confidence in it. Of course, you know, in any high growth business, we will have to keep a very close eye on that, because we're also coming into a busy period. So it's very easy to test something in the world of rental or, you know, tech when you are in a slightly kind of the time of the year where it's not the highest demand. So that's obviously January, February, March, far less events. Then you start to see May, June, July, weddings, races, Ascot, Henley, all of the things that go on. So it's a bit, it's been a kind of quieter time to test. So one of the key things will be is like, is everyone still, you know, NPS like super high? Is everyone still happy with their experience of interacting with us at peak in a condensed working week? It will be something we'll monitor closely.
I'll definitely be listening with interest to see what happens. In 5 words, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Okay, this is a really good question, but it's hard. I will say that definitely my family and my friends, my family. Is that 2? Maybe. We'll see. We'll come back. This might also be 2, but like definitely changing behaviour. Like that's what we do. And it's really cool. It's hard, but sometimes like you get up and you're like, wait, the biggest retailer in the UK just decided to add rental, which is great. This is probably a bit telling, but like maybe winning. I'm really competitive. Like you know, when someone's 5 a.m. alarm goes, if I like have a thought in my head that like I'm competing with someone and theirs is going at 4, mine is going at 4, like 3:55, like that gets me out of bed. I don't know why. Then obviously kind of the sustainability narrative is hugely important to me. It comes closely tied to the changing behaviour, but it's why we do what we do. Like that. So cheesy, but there isn't a planet B, and you know there is no time like present. We need to change behaviour today, and then maybe my 5th was family and friends. Maybe we make those 2. Does that work?
That's fine.
Or is that cheating?
That's fine. No, that's all right. I think you can be creative with the 5 words. Thank you.
There's nothing else that's jumping out.
Just to finish off, obviously work dominates a lot of your life, but outside of that, what do you do to have fun, chill out, relax? Anything at all?
You know what? It does dominate a lot. And when for the first few years, I was terrible. I was actually terrible at having any separation from happiness and the success of work. So it was so bad that I would take a bad day on orders personally. And like, I think probably COVID, because things went so bad, that was the point where maybe I got some separation from that, which was like, wait, people haven't ordered today, and that's not that they hate me, which is a big old learning. It's actually that, you know, they can't go anywhere. So I've been on real ups and downs with this, and I'm definitely still learning loads. But I would say I'm actually getting married in June,
Congratulations.
Thank you. Which has been interesting as a challenge to plan a wedding and run, well, effectively 2 businesses at the moment. There is a lot still to do. But that's been an amazing distraction. My family and friends are absolutely what keep me going. And actually that's the one thing I would say, looking back on that first year, 2 years, I didn't give my best self to anyone around me. I was probably a bit of a nightmare because I was so upset all the time. I was so emotionally vulnerable all the time. Whereas actually what became very quickly very apparent was like, your friends and family are going to look after you, whatever, and they are the most important thing. And then now I am so much better at, say, I'm going to finish at 40 because I'm going to go see my goddaughter. And actually, when you are with a 2-year-old, they don't let you think about anything else, and you actually physically can't. Or like, you know, making sure that we do have a date night, or like a night to plan something for the wedding, or those types of things. So I would say that it literally, outside of work, my friends and family keep me going, and they are amazing.
That's great. I'm glad you've got that network around you to support you, and you know, really looking forward to seeing what happens with the business next. It's really exciting. So thanks very much for your time today, Isabella. It's been a
pleasure.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for listening to Fear Less, Do More. All of our guests come from a diverse range of backgrounds, but they all share a common drive to face their fears, take action, and create meaningful impact. If you've enjoyed this episode of our podcast, please follow us, Square One Law, on Instagram and LinkedIn, and share the content with your friends, family, and networks. Thank you, and see you again on our next episode.